Katie, where's home for you?
So right now I'm in Vermont, but normally I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Tony, where are you?
Here we are.
Oh, here we go.
I
Okay.
think we've loaded.
All right. Small talk can go to
We
the
are
next question.
live.
Katie, for you?
So right now I'm in Vermont. Normally I'm in Brooklyn. Sorry about that. Yeah. That was me.
And Tony, where are you?
Here we are.
I am in Toledo, Ohio.
Toledo, Ohio. Excellent.
And I think we are actually live now.
Yes, we are.
Fantastic. Close that out. Bring back up the Zoom. All right, we are live. My apologies to everybody who was watching, wondering where we were. We had a little bit of a technical situation, but we seem to have gotten that figured out now wonderfully. Welcome to Crucible, everybody. Welcome specifically to this night. This is a really exciting night for me. And I wanted to, when I started thinking about doing Crucible, this was the kind of night I really wanted to do. The very first person I reached out to in order to do one of these readings was Adeeba Shahid Talukder. Her new book was coming out, and I knew it was going to be brilliant. And with everything that was going on, all I really wanted was to see a way, if there was a way that we could share the word about that and spread the word about that and get a lot of information out there so that we could do that. And to give her a chance to read her work and celebrate her work. And I'm deeply grateful to Adeeba because she went out and put together an incredible lineup of poets, some of my absolute favorites. It's an honor to have all four of them here. We've got a great night for you tonight. We are going to spend the night celebrating Adeeba's book. We're also going to be hearing from these other three amazing poets. So our readers tonight are Faisal Mohyuddin, Rajiv Mohabir, Katie Willingham, and Adeeba Shahid Talukder. I don't want to say too much because I want to let them really take care of, I want to give them the time. This isn't about me, and this is just supposed to be about them and about Adeeba's brilliant book. Before we move on, though, I just two quick things. I want to let you know that if you enjoy what you're hearing, if you have a good time tonight, if you like the poetry you hear, you can head over to our website at glass-poetry.com/crucible.html. That link is in the YouTube information. There you'll see some tickets and you can make a donation. If you're able to, send a few dollars over to these four readers. Everything that comes in through the donations is going to be spread evenly among the four of them. So everything you put in is going to go to them. The other note that I will let you know is, in an attempt to make the event as accessible as possible, the poets generously put together a Google Doc that will have a bunch of the poems. So if you need that to help follow along, you can do that. That link is also in the information on YouTube. So without further ado, I'm going to begin this by introducing our first reader. Starting up today, we're gonna start with the incredible Faisal Mohyuddin. He is a poet, an educator, and a visual artist. His first full length is The Displaced Children of Displaced Children, which was released by Iowa Press. He's also the author of The Riddle of Longing from Backbone Press. Additionally, he works as an education advisor to the global nonprofit Narrative 4, which is a network of educators, students, and artists who help other students understand that their voices, their stories, their actions and lives matter, and that they have power to change, rebuild, or revolutionize systems. It's incredible work, and it's an incredible organization. Faisal also teaches high school English in Chicago and is teaching a course on chapbooks at Northwestern University. It is a huge honor and a pleasure to have Faisal with us, and I am going to turn it over completely to him.
All right. Thank you so much, Tony. You've done so much to make this night happen, and I would say, like, I'm just honored to be a part of this. Adeeba, congratulations to you, Mubarak. It's a really exciting thing. I've been waiting, I feel like, for years and years for your book to finally come out, and to have it in our world is really exciting. And I was like messaging with Adeeba earlier today, and the best way to put it is that her work, her spirit, just herself, I feel like I'm more at home in the world. I'm more at home in the poetry community. I feel like I understand myself better with her work. So, and I'm just really happy and honored to be here. And I know it's a very difficult time for a lot of people, and any chance to like celebrate good things, I think is worthwhile, and even more worthwhile right now. But that doesn't mean we want to lose sight of all the people that are struggling. So, we're thinking of you all as well. I want to start with a poem of Adeeba's. Actually, before I say that, I don't think Tony mentioned, but Adeeba's chapbook came out from Glass Poetry Press a few years ago, and so like this is like it's a kind of a homecoming. I would feel like for Adeeba too. So I hope Tony, you know that we're grateful as readers and fans of Adeeba's work for that. So the poem I'm going to read of Adeeba's is Because She Could Not. It's hard to pick just one poem when you love so many. Because she could not find the water under the hills or in the creek in the yard. The rocks sat alone in the air, and the moss, too, lay parched. She stole garlands from boat bows, marigolds pressed together on thin white cord, jasmines and roses still wet with dew, crushed them until they dripped from her fingers. And that's from this beautiful book. I also have to say a big shout out of thanks to Rajiv, who's been so generous and kind to me, and Katie. It's been so great to meet you and get to like expand my poetry family, and any friend of Adeeba's is a friend of mine, and I'm grateful to share this space with you. So I'll read some of my own work, and the first poem I'm gonna read is called Ghazal for the Lost. And this is a poem actually published by Tony a few years ago in Glass, the Journal of Poetry, and I've been so grateful to Tony for giving this poem a home. And it's Ghazal for the Lost. None of the unspeaking souls on this morning train knows where we are going. Waking again to a washed, clean darkness, we prefer the frightening disquiet of mystery. To bear witness to the disappearing bravery of the night's last remaining star is to walk alone through the hills without water, is to fill your mouth with mystery. Inside each bird in the taxidermist's house, hidden between folds of crumpled paper, the photograph of a child, bright eyes of a surrogate heart, their youthful mystery. Why must every breath come at a cost? Each passing minute steal from us the color and strength of our bodies. To live is to be a dying thing. All else is mystery. Prayer directs our longing towards Makkah, keeps our foreheads anchored to the earth. Each step is touched by language, but between prostrations, silence, and mystery. When the rain begins to fall, sending shivers of joy through the dead desert air, a sleeping dog lifts his head from the sand, watches the washing away of mystery. As you arrive at your final destination, a village carved from a mountain's hip, a castle at its center, drop your body, begin to climb. Be no longer afraid of mystery. Do you remember, Faisal, what the elders preached about forgetting? Centuries of grief had made them wise, taught them to seek the mercy and goodness of mystery. The next poem is a piece called Of the Punjab. And so my family is from the Punjab part of Pakistan. Before that, they were in India before partition. And so much of like my identity and kind of like how I understand like my sense of home is Punjabi, the language, the culture. And so this is a poem about the Punjab, which is the land of 5 rivers. And those of you that I can see, is the sound okay on your side? Any issues with sound? Okay. Of the Punjab. Exile begins where rivers end. I dream my limbs and head are the 5 rivers that make fertile the land of my ancestors. I dream about wild music, about longing, about an end to thirst. My tongue plows through black silt, lifting scraps of language, history, myth. Along the Ravi, Jahangir's molecules have migrated from his decaying tomb into the whistling sweetness of water. I taste the emperor's fishy eyes, his inky breath, the aching vacancies of his toothless gums. I taste lost time. Where my father lived as a boy, fatherless, in a stone house with shuttered windows, a girl now sits, her face caged by shadows, embroidering with golden thread a bouquet by candlelight, held like a thin drum between her knees. A wood frame holds taut the black silk. Her needle plunges, resurfaces. Gardenias bloom in every mahalla of Lahore. The sputtering moths orbiting the flame grow giddy on perfumed air, lose their caution, burn. Behind me, a blind cartographer beckons. He promises a new empire, my claim upon it brokered by worms and the wind-borne remnants of lost names. I claw open a grave at the girl's feet. I recite the alphabet. I unbraid the water from my blood and surrender to the soil. I let darkness fall in earthy clumps until I am crushed. The girl wraps the tombstone with the black cloth, falls to her knees like a fellow pilgrim. She begins to hum. I wake to the haunted chatter of rain. The next poem is a little bit different. It's a poem about jellyfish. And so NASA did this study on microgravity, and it's like if human beings were going to be living in outer space, what would that do to our bodies, our minds? And so they did a study with these type of jellyfish called Arella areta. And I was thinking a lot about this poem of how difficult it is to feel isolated and to feel trapped within our like spaces, and how just like emotionally draining the quarantine, the sheltering in place. And that's for people that are like not dealing with illness or people that are ill. And so this is a poem called The Salvation of Arella areta. Jellyfish born in space aren't happy on Earth. I don't believe in any hocus pocus, new age, mumbo jumbo. But I hurt for this species of boneless electric wonder named after the moon. Self-possessed by a terrifying terrestrial bulk, weight, they feel fat, slow, depressed, dying not in the luminous white noise of galactic emptiness, but in casserole dishes, understood in some underfunded underground NASA lab, poked by pencils, punctured despair seeping from their glassy globes. Perhaps they pine for the way the weightlessness of space made them feel more like light bulbs than corpses. I'd trade my life for that delusion of worth. The future is cannibalistic for glowing things dimmed, and space-borne jellyfish lungs ache when the bluster of breath pollutes the soul. Then what's left to be saved? I say, rocket them homeward through the incinerating mist of Earth's atmosphere. May their longing to be ethereal again cremate the damage of gravity. May the space dust of their pain dissipate into the gasping void. And my last poem is a piece called The Breath Inside the Breath. I love writing acrostic poems, and I have many in this book. And I do a lot of acrostic poems like for people or as gifts to people. So one of my dearest friends who I've known since college, this was an acrostic poem written for his 40th birthday a couple years ago. It's called The Breath Inside the Breath. And I'll tell you his name afterwards. His name is the acrostic. And there's an epigraph from Kabir that says, listen, my friend, he who loves understands. The breath inside the breath. So it happens. Walking with soul wide open for the rising sun, a man, as if shot, goes still, his breath suddenly caught by some cosmic hook slung down from the heavens. He collapses, knees to earth, hand clutched to heart, and asks the Almighty in gasps of silence for instructions on surviving this panic. The answer, a tangle of sound nudged along a remembering wind, arrives as a blessing, a name blooming as new life upon his lips, as breath inside breath. The man plucked from the pinch of death rises up on wings of gratitude and sings, first of God, then of a friend, of him, turns then to face the sun, brighter now, a mirror, there in the healing awe of light, edged in gold, sits a tuning fork, iron hot, ready to be struck again. Lifed by love, he listens to the music of a shared cosmos, cries, Amin, Amin, Amin. So the acrostic spells Sachin B. Patel, and is just my closest friend. And we talked about how much our lives are connected cosmically, and so this poem was for him. Thank you all again. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Adeeba. Thank you, Rajiv, in advance, and Katie in advance, and all of you out there listening. Please give a shout out to Tony, who I think is going to introduce the next poet. Is that you, Tony, or am I going to?
Yep, nope, I got it. All right,
thanks so much again.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. That was amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Up next, we have Rajiv Mohabir. And I'm super excited about this. I have loved his work for a long time. So when Adeeba put this group together, and I saw Faisal's name, I saw Rajiv's name, I saw Katie's name, my mind was just kind of blown. So I'm really excited to bring on Rajiv. He is the author of The Cowherd's Son from Tupelo Press and The Taxidermist Cut from Four Way Books. He received a Penheim Translation Fund Grant Award for his translation of Labihari's Sharma's Holy Songs of Demara, and Reckless Books' 2019 New Immigrant Writing Prize for his memoir, which is forthcoming. He's an assistant professor of poetry in the MFA program at Emerson College and the translations editor at Waxwing Journal. It is a true honor to have you with us, Rajiv. The screen is yours.
Great, thank you so much, Tony, for the introduction. Thank you, Faisal, for reading, and thank you, Katie, for being so gracious and so lovely meeting you for the first time virtually today. And then, of course, to you too, Adeeba. Thank you for asking me to come and read with you. What a sincere honor this is for me. I am so glad for your beautiful book, which is out in the world. And I want to thank everyone for being here tonight to listen to us gather and to hold poetry up in this time of darkness. I'm going to start by reading a poem from this wonderful collection by Adeeba called Idle. Idle by Adeeba Shahid Talukder. In the smoke of altars, we shape you. You are barely there. Each day they fell you with a wave before our very eyes. They say your gray cloak spans the city's fog, clouds rising to a tower of relentless water. As the river fills with rain, the city's candles turn quiet. The moon, too, rests behind clouds. All the idols are gone, they say. God, how many candles were lit in search of you, snuffed when you were found? They hold you still above us, force us to bow down. And so, Adeeba's book is the latest in the series of the Kundiman Prize winners. And I am going to now share two poems that are in The Cowherd's Son with you. And so one of the things that we should know about this, or that you should know about these poems before I begin, is that there's a tradition that Hindustani ragas have magical powers. In the 1500s in India, in Madhya Pradesh, in the time of Akbar the Great, lived Tansen, a composer of Hindustani music. It was said that his compositions were so powerful that he could control the elements. Some of these ragas were lost to time, some of them are remembered, and if you sing them correctly, things will happen. One such raga is called the Deepak raga, which the viziers of Akbar the Great had such jealousy in their hearts for Tansen that they called him to the court of Akbar to sing this particular raga. And if you sing it, flames will leap from the candles set all around. These words are my imagining of the bowl of the words in that raga. Deepak raga. Look at the darkness in your temple. What words will spark your fuse, Huzur? Don't smash the clay lamps. Tear back the skin in my forearm and pluck its saffron tendons. Open your throat, and the gourd you cradle leaps into flicker. Sienna finches flit from lips to wick. I catch one glowing ember and swallow it whole. Subhanallah against the marbled walls. I am your tambura. You sear your fingertips against my river veins. After Tansen played this raga, all about the clay lamps, the candles lit into flame, all of the wood in the hall, in the great hall of Akbar the Great, leapt into fire. It became so hot that the river started to boil and the cows in the field started to die. Now, Tansen was no idiot. In his gaon, in his village, he asked his wife, who is rumored to be an even better musician, to play the Malhar Raga, which summons the rain if sung correctly. She picked up her sitar and she played. You fill a copper urn with kush grass, a pile of rice, and garlands of marigolds. In all four directions, ghosts with quicksilver bellies crowd the sky. Mercurial, you salam me, sickle in hand to slit my strings at the bridge. I slip into dream through the cotton shroud, red line into the underworld at 103rd and Broadway. I dip a flower into the Vaitarna River and touch it to my two eyes. It turns into thunder. The rains begin. I dip a leaf into the river and it scales into a coil's black plume. Silver glints in a flurry of moons. The rains begin. The bird in monsoon pinions warbles my name with your larynx, and the rain begins. I open my throat and swallow billows of cloud. With a stick, I write in the sand, my love with the hole in your throat. It's hard not to lick your sores. After she played this raga, the rains fell and outed all of the flames, and the viziers of Akbar the Great were humbled. The next two poems that I'm going to read for you are from my forthcoming collection called Cutlash, which is the Berbishan Guyanese word for cutlass, which is a machete. The first poem that I will read is a Kabira, inspired by Kabir's poetry. Kabir was a poet saint who lived in India from the late 1400s to the 1500s. This poem I originally wrote in Hindi and Bhojpuri, so I'm going to read it in the original language just in case there's somebody there who will understand and hear the poetry in these words before I read the translation. Kabira, tu mitti aur सांस का महल अंशवर खिला समझता है एक दिन आंगन में भस्म और धुआं शोले का खेल खेलेंगे याद कर कि ऐसा वासना का महल जगत में खड़ा है क्या हवा खुले हुए खिड़की वाले कमरों में बंद रहेगी बिना एक ही देश वो खुले से उड़ता है नदी जल की तरह कहे कबीर तू न जाने के मुल्क से आइला ये मिट्टी और हड्डी का मकान तेरा घर थोड़ा ही होगा हालांकि हो पिंजरा सुंदर मजबूत या सोने चांदी का दरवाजा खोल जाए तो भला कौन पक्षी अंदर रहेगा Kabira. And now, as I've translated this, the form that it took in English was as a chutney poem, which is based on Indo-Caribbean dance music. And so the chorus of the chutney poem appears in Guyanese Bhojpuri or Guyanese Caribbean Hindustani. And so what I've done is I've written that couplet to be echoic of what the chorus would do and how it would function in this specific species of song. Hatelian ki mehendi halki hoye ke ghayab, is ridwa mein bhala ka tikhav. The palm's mehendi lightens, then disappears. What permanence is in your body? You will your house of clay and breath a fortress. One day, ash and smoke will play fire games in the courtyard. Remember, this hovel is of 5 senses. Does the wind stay trapped in a room when its windows yawn? Without country, it flows as river water, a traceless origin. How can you say this structure of earth and bone is home? Says Kabir, however beautiful gold or silver, when the cage door cracks, what bird stays inside? The last poem that I'll read for you tonight is called Guide. And Guide is based on the 1965 film starring Devanand and Wahida Rahman, which was also based on a novel by R.K. Narayan called Guide. And it's about a person who we would consider to be a terrible human being, looking for redemption and searching for God, and to echo the themes of that kind of search that we find in Adeeba's book. I offer this to you tonight. In closing, Guide. In the desert, if I say Ram or Rahim, will the clouds break into a steady drum? If sky cracks, I will sing for you, stamp my feet into ribbon. What if I said, even in the night, where your hair's perfume torments, I am still parched. There are no lowly births. Clouds too begin first as sea. Would you believe that I could leave the world, drawn up by the sun as a saint, me, a forgery of a man? I watched you dance like a cobra. What does it take to be so bewitched by spirit? I spend the dark with whiskey, making a mask of withered roses. How quickly a shadow can pass and you become a stranger. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. That was phenomenal. That was absolutely phenomenal. I'm so grateful to have heard your work. That was wonderful. And I am incredibly proud and happy to now bring up Katie Willingham. She is the author of Unlikely Resigns from the University of Chicago. Her poetry is widely published in places like the Kenyon Review, Poem a Day, Third Coast, and more. And in the recent anthology, The Mind Has Cliffs of Fall, Poems at the Extremes of Feeling. She's also the editor of Michigan Quarterly Review and comes to us today remotely from Vermont. Katie, it is all yours.
Hi, everyone. My heart is so full today to be reading with all of you, and in putting our Google Doc together, we were actually all kind of choosing poems around the same time. So we were, our energy was coalescing around this reading today in a way I'm not sure it would be if we had been leading different kinds of lives outside of the quarantine. So. This poem is called Correction, Tonight Will Not Be the Longest Night in the History of Earth. Lately, I've enlisted an app on my phone to keep track of the time that I can't witness. It maps the dark blanket of missing consciousness, a jagged line. Best night, worst night, it says, though I remember neither. I have been blessed with sleep that comes on thick and steadily. Whatever dreaming enters, I don't recall. I wake to snow again, sheets of static. I admit I have a soft spot for the apocalypse. Some part of me must be totally rotten. Ever since you introduced me to the Survivor Library, I've been plotting disappearing acts. But green screen isn't a way to go, just a way to fool the light. Blue screen, on the other hand, the blue screen of death, they call it, covered in the white scrawl of encoded error. Enumerated, particular in its lethality. Everyone knows the only answer is to restart. Restart, yes, like the Survivor Library, one man's catalog of industrial development circa 1800 to 1900 in case of nuclear detonation, solar flare. It must be true what they say, that pain produces logic. Only 5 hours ago, the librarian posts about a near miss, a category 2 flare. This could have been my last post and your last time on the internet for a generation or more. And across the ocean, in Cambridge, the lights are out at the Center for the Study of Existential Risk. The astrophysicist and philosopher and computer programmer that make up its ranks are still asleep. The good news, librarian again, the good news is we went to the moon with only a slide rule. A slide rule. You can print one off the internet and tuck it away in a drawer. And eyes, yes, no one seemed to work very well anymore. Note, add something on optometry. If anything, this compendium is proof of our belief in loneliness, in its power, that what we can make, we can also stop from coming true. The thing is, you're probably asleep by now, but I have no way to verify this without waking you. Spit in the wind near the ocean, and which salt returns. How to be sure if you've tasted it before. Remind me, what is it we are still attempting to measure? The apparatus, I assure you, is faulty. The apparatus barely holds a charge anymore. The apparatus keeps forgetting what we've asked it to locate, which universe we inhabit, whether to start with the good news or the bad news, but even the good news could only be the kind that comes with a bad diagnosis. At least you know, at least. Before the string of codes on the screen, a solid color signals the fatal condition. A blue, I'm learning to read anew since it was updated from navy to cerulean, from the Latin caelum for heaven, for nothing but sky. Darwinist logic on pattern recognition. What is beauty but a game of matching? How we know what to love and what to eat. If your view is limited, writes Darwin, many objects possess great beauty. We can survive on quite a limited taxonomy. A blight knows a chestnut when it sees one, but I forget which trees turn what color, which plants return, and which die out in winter and must be sown again come spring. I mean, I forget what to cherish. Perhaps I'll invest in automatic lighting, replace these bulbs with smarter ones that hear me coming so I never have to call out in the dark. What I want is a string I pull to make confetti rain down from the sky and not be the one to clean it up, and not think about trees, and not think about chemical dyes. Darwin again, At daybreak, things wore a very bad appearance. Years on that boat, he cultivated a variety of rhetorical strategies for considering the weather, but each little snail got only one name. I want this confetti to melt on my tongue a sweetness. The tongue a wet reminder of the bestial, the dog who approaches everything mouth first, learns everything by taste. Though he has eyes that work and ears that work, it doesn't matter. The houses we build for birds are shaped just like our own. So those first two poems are from my book, Unlikely Designs, which I have here. It has a series of those Darwinist logic poems. And I'll circle back to Darwin a little bit later, but these next two poems are newer. And before I go on, I just wanted to say I am checking the chats. So if you want to leave those for me or others, we will see them now or later. This next poem I wrote last fall about my own experience with chronic illness, but it's of course interesting to read in this context too. Apocalypse, Utopia 21. Place is no longer infused with destruction, I say into my hands, but they barely absorb it, continuing instead to burn at the edges. We are getting sick together all the time, but don't mention it. Rule, don't let the pain know you're listening, that you can be scooped out further. Little persistent archive hand, carrying, weighing, cut, bruise, weakness, flick. I hold a pile of air, a dark pool, an answer I don't want to honor about the future. It has a shine to it, like a horse's eye while his master is sleeping. Paradise is between one flu season and the next. A carrot salad someone's mother made, and you ate dutifully because your friend had been in an accident. You didn't take it for granted. Rule, don't take anything. Every day, it keeps dawning on me that further research is likely futile. It is a gift you look forward to giving in to. The children are at the window again, asking the weather to shift, and I am in a dark room, imagining a dark room. So if anyone else is spending some of this time imagining the many rooms of their dream home and what's in them, this poem is for you. It's called Sad Art Room. As soon as you mentioned your dream house would have a special room for sad art, I began to account for this in my own schematics. I started by placing it in the basement. Windowless and cool, it is ideal for preserving materials as well as excising them from the realm of animal need and desire, the kitchen, the bed. I dreamed this underworld to our home where ghosts could spread out the way they like to, touching everything with the soft tips of their whispered fingers. Then I thought perhaps it's best to consider a room where light is plentiful and stark, and then it could have plants which make you sad inside because of their dependence. But then one morning I looked at my bookshelf in our current apartment and realized the sad art room would need to be completely lined with shelves for them all. And then what would our bedroom be like without their tender, urgent spines? I turned around to face the bed and sit down, and there were our pillows, singing of the pleasure of our daily intimacy, dreaming in tandem in the dark. But they were also gently dented, tinged with the sadness of departed bodies. And then there was the undeniable sadness of their separate pillowcases, open ends angled away from each other. I began to crowd the sad art room quickly then, broken shells from Cape Cod, a sweatshirt I wore when I was very sick and always cold, unused colored pencils, empty vitamin bottle, purse with crumpled receipts at the bottom. It became the crowded room I pictured for all iconic storybook hermits, where young Arthur finds Merlin ensconced in wizard things in the Disney rendition, the abundance itself, a piercing sadness. The only solution I've come to, and I haven't brought myself to tell you until now, is to make the sad art room a hallway. This way, it has a pair of thresholds, not just one. It won't be an underworld, but a portal that transforms us from ourselves into ourselves again. So I have two more poems. This next one is a letter I wrote to Charles Darwin after I'd spent so much time with him in my first book. And then I'll close with a poem by Adeeba to transition us into her beautiful work. Thank you so much again to our hosts and all our readers, and especially to Adeeba, who is the thread that binds us all together tonight. Thank you so much. Dear Charlie, I've been reading a great deal about islands, these dry pockets in the vast and over-salted blue soup you sailed, a ship named after a breed of dog, the one with his nose to the ground. You know how they bob and dip below the surface, drowning what's rooted only to breach again like eyeless whales. We often ignore what returns to the ocean, but I can't imagine giving up my legs, even if the process was incredibly slow. Sorry, I know that's not quite how it works. And certainly, ice caps don't choose to melt, but I've built up so much intention over the years. I have loved things so wholly, so irrevocably. If only you'd seen Miyazaki's robots, 1 foot in each world, their heavy alloyed arms hiding the pink of tissue and vein beneath. Forgive me, sir. Unlike evolution, I find I prioritize symbolic logic over functionality. The machines I invent make everything slower. I construct silences to keep my other ones company. The silence of the pitcher of milk, the silence of fresh cut grass, fresh cut hair, the silence of forks separated from knives, the spoons. I shut the drawer, their little box. Yes, everything goes in boxes now. Even the chicken bones get wrapped all delicate in plastic and fed to the mouth of a green truck on Thursdays, their painted casket. Dear Charlie, if we're speaking openly with each other, have you ever felt a private joy in the way the body turns towards some other purpose in death, what was built to persist, made also to dissolve? As a child, I put my hand as far down the well as it would go and was dismayed each time, pulling up only my hand again. And this is Adeeba. On ghazal poetry versus natural poetry. Being excluded from a universe too is a type of dance. Still, so often we write of the moon. Thank you.
That was incredible, Katie. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now we will turn to our final reader. Excuse me. A couple years ago, I had the incredible pleasure of working with Adeeba Shahid Talukder on her first chapbook, What Is Not Beautiful. And right around that time, we saw the announcement that her first book had won the Kundiman Prize. I have been waiting for her book ever since. And while this is not the way anybody would want to release their first book, as a reader, I am so grateful to have her book right now. The need for beauty and the need for poetry right now, it's super high for a lot of us, myself included. So I am incredibly grateful to Adeeba for being here with us. I'm incredibly grateful to all of the readers for being here with us, and I'm grateful to all of you for spending your Saturday evening with us. As a bit of an introduction, Adeeba Shahid Talukder is the author of the chapbook What Is Not Beautiful, released by Glass Poetry Press. I'm a little biased, but I will say it's very beautiful. Her full-length collection, Shahr-e-jaanaan, The City of the Beloved, won the Kundiman Prize and was just released from Tupelo Press. Adeeba is a poet, a singer, and a translator of Urdu and Persian poetry, whose work has appeared in Poem a Day, Meridian, The Margins, PBS Frontline, and Words Without Borders. She's a Best of the Net finalist and a Pushcart nominee, and she holds an MFA from the University of Michigan and is an emerging poets fellowship from Poets House. Adeeba, I don't have a stage, but I will give you the screen.
Hi, I just want to start off by thanking Anthony Frame, who did publish my book, What Is Not Beautiful. And I'm so thankful for him because like he's just been a phenomenal editor. He's like been so wonderful to work with, and both with his chapbooks and with the poetry on his website. He's just been really nice to me. Also, I'm being awkward, so let me start reading. So the first poem actually appears in both What Is Not Beautiful and Shahr-e-jaanaan, the City of the Beloved. And it's titled God-Shaped Woman. Basically, I had a dream one night where just the phrase God-shaped woman kept recurring. And like, you know, I woke up and I was like, oh, I haven't written a poem by that title yet. So let me write that poem. And here it is. God-shaped woman. What it is to dusk her neck, its gleaming sun, to be a slave, the pull of light, the chains idle bind. She draws you into a tale. She is thin, a slight curve, and cannot move to infinity. You, pacing her tower's garden, trample the heads of poppies. When she tells you to climb the arc of the cypress to fetch her the ripe, hanging moon, you swoon. But once she bends and her eyes candle, you understand. Life is a game. Then you cannot look at her, just as she cannot see herself in a mirror. So if all of you look back to the video, you will see me hearts eyeing you all because you all read really beautifully, and I'm so lucky to have you, Rajiv, Faisal, and Katie reading with me and celebrating my book with me. It's really a dream. So I'm going to read some poems from my debut, Shahr-e-jaanaan, the City of the Beloved. And the first one I'm going to read is titled The Mosque and Eyebrow, the Tavern and I. And a lot of what I think about is the idea of like gods versus God. So like the lowercase gods versus the uppercase God, and like how, like, you know, the multiple gods interact with, you know, the monotheistic God. And in Islam, like idol worship is forbidden. So this poem kind of tries to play with that. The mosque and eyebrow, the tavern and I. When on the 15th night the moon began to wane, centuries of copper, of gold, of marbled wrists, glinted once, then found the sand. That night, no poets came to the gatherings of the fair-faced, no drunkard was banished from their lanes. All candles fell quiet. The beloved hung on dry branches, perfumed, silvering. There was no God. In all the sky, there was no God. Brace yourselves for the next poem, which is actually the longest poem in this book, and it's also very intense. It's a very intense experience for me every time I read it. And yeah, it's just a lot. So that's my warning. It's the title poem, Shahr-e-jaanaan, the city of the beloved. At December's end, Benazir died in a suicide attack. Men burned tires, cars, banks, petrol pumps, and factories, perhaps in grief. The nights in New York were clear, cold, and I read Fez in a way I never would again. In Washington Square, the benches were empty, the trees without leaves, their branches thick enough to hang something. That winter, I found myself in his apartment, wearing so many bangles they couldn't move or make a sound. He gave me a glass of water, walked me to his bedroom. I said, "Marry me first." We spoke our vows. He couldn't pronounce the Urdu. An hour later, he told me he didn't love me, said not to take it personally, said these things take time. I ran from his apartment, tearing through the lobby, gulping cold air, screaming at God until I could only whisper, "I will wait." His breath from all the air vents, his voice in the sky and water. I rested by the rocks. Shahid witnessed me sitting alone there in barely a shawl. He measured the soil, then spoke. You are the beloved, you revolution, silver-palmed goddess, hair falling in torrents, roses of lips. When you climb the scaffold's branch, all the bewildered lovers will wake, search the half-lit lanes. Faiz writes, ना रसाई अगर अपनी तकदीर थी, तेरी उल्फत तो अपनी ही तदबीर थी. किसको शिकवा है कर शौक के सिलसिले, हिजर की कत्ल गाहों से सब जा मिले. If not to reach you was fate, loving you was in my own hands. Why complain then if my path led to the gallows of separation? I smeared lipstick on without a mirror, spread my scarves across the dirtied carpet, lay out my journals like sacred texts, scissored my hair until it fell like rain, smothered my palms with lotion and talc until they silvered at last. They told me to stop. They told me I was no prophetess, but I was, for I was wrathful. My aunt pulled Mina into the kitchen, said, "Now listen closely and promise me you will be strong. Your sister has gone mad." In the ward, I tore newspapers, shredded rose petals. Again and again, I pulled the white sheets over my head and waited for him. I sang for 3 hours, love songs, Faiz and Ghalib. Dying wouldn't be so bad if I only had to do it once. I held out my wrist to the security guard, begged him to arrest me. The next morning, I took attendance, read the headlines out to the other patients, collected their water cups. Ammi came in the evening with a blanket and chocolates, touched my hair, whispered prayers to undo the knots. She held my hand, but I only wanted his. Ghalib writes, Though I lived on your promise, I didn't think it was real, or else wouldn't I have died of happiness. A new patient. The others formed a circle around her. She spoke as if in a trance. I am the American dream. I am the American dream. An old lady who always asked everyone for quarters giggled. A phone call, my father's voice. My daughter, you have buried our heads in the dust. Ghalib writes, होता है निहा गर्द में सहरा मेरे होते घिसता है जबी खाक पे दरिया मेरे आगे. The desert hides itself in dust. The river rubs its head on the earth before me. After his visit, my uncle told Ummi I'd been erratic with my eyeliner. She came to fix it. I knew then I had fallen. She showed me his email. It really isn't my fault, you see, if your daughter insisted on coming to my apartment on the 4th date. As I stared and sipped tea, the mirror told me, you are without beauty. When the mind rings and you are in the apartment watching your face swell, some realities of marriage, of love, of the revolution, of God, thaw like soiled snow. There are new ones now. There is a gray that tinges the cold. The moon is of paper. In the water, too many fish. Your uncle is trying to get you married in Pakistan to someone, anyone. David is across the piano singing. 10 minutes ago, I saw you. To another girl. I'm going to read 2 new poems, and then I'm going to end with another one from Shahr-e-jaanaan. I also want to acknowledge all 3 of the readers here today. Faisal Mohyuddin, Rajiv Mohabir, and Katie Willingham have really played a giant role in this book. Whether it was advising me on things or like Katie helped me with like a lot of last minute line edits that were very, very tedious. So yeah, thank you. Thank you all. So this is a poem I wished I'd included in Shahr-e-jaanaan, but but I wrote it after I sent the manuscript. So well, I'd like to read it with it anyway, though. January 9th, 2008. What they call mania is a mind brilliant in darkness. In you, Manhattan blinks. No one hears your terror at the East River, how it beats its head upon the rocks. When you dethroned God, you saw the world too vast, too heavy to hold, and to learn this was to learn wrath. In these white rooms, no one comes to mourn your death, then rebirth. God, awake all night, rest, rest. You are weary and the world turns without you. This next poem is a response to what's been happening in India. The violence against Muslims. A lot of times, whenever I write about cruelty, what I end up writing about is what the people who are performing the cruelty might be thinking. So this is sort of like that. It's titled, In God's Absence, Devotees Empty the Holy Shrine. And it was inspired by a headline from the Los Angeles Times, that says, for Muslims in India, entire neighborhoods have gone empty in fear. My Lord, delight in this. We have ripped the tyrants' tongues, lashed and bled their bodies for holy. The dawn's thick wound ripens. Look, blood pours forth, spills as glory as light. And in this red flames glimmer our rise, murder of what pours filth into our waters. Ours, the sky of stones. We grasp our spades, our iron rods, our butcher's knives, blacken their mirrors and eyes, cleave from them their raised fingers. Then every house, shrine, and body, empty them all of breath. I'm going to end with another from Shahr-e-jaanaan. And this is actually the final poem. And I wrote it on the eve of the 2018 midterm elections, where it just, I think for a lot of us, it felt like there was a lot at stake. You know, we didn't know what would happen the next day, and we didn't know what kinds of people would come to power, and that was frightening for me. But there was also hope that Fez calls it Umeed Sahar, hope for a new dawn. So there's that hope. This poem is also after Fez, and it's titled after one of his really famous verses that goes, फिर आईनाए आदम शायद के निखर जाए, फिर अपनी नज़र शायद ता हद्दे नज़र जाए. So perhaps the mirror of the world will clear once again. Perhaps once again our gaze will travel to the limits of sight. Mirror of the world. When the crescent pierces the soft of it, the afternoon bursts forlorn, despite its light upon light. I ask, whose blade is sharpest? Who holds the sky today and tomorrow? To whom belong the flames at night? Is it your lovers, O beloved, or the executioners? The breeze wakes us from the dark, whispers, if the wounds are blooming, the roses will too. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. And I want to thank Anthony Frame and my friends for reading again.
Okay, thank you so much, Adeeba. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Thank you for your readings. And I just want to say to everyone who is watching, if you haven't yet, head over to the Tupelo Press website and buy Adeeba's book, because it is incredible. It is worth every penny and then some. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, Adeeba. And congratulations again on this incredible book.